Hello, this is Shay Stanley from Little Steps Live, and today we are going to be exploring a very interesting topic with our friends over at North London Collegiate School in Singapore. We have Louise and Carly. We'll be hearing all about them, but today's focus is going to be on the junior school. We are going to be exploring how the junior school at the North London Collegiate School shapes lifelong learners. We're going to be exploring wellness. We're going to be exploring curiosity, play, a lot of various areas. And we're very happy to have Carly and Louise with us. Can we just have a quick introduction just to tell us about yourselves and how you ended up in Singapore with this fantastic school? So maybe Carly, could you just go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. Lovely to meet you. I'm Carly Potter, the Assistant Principal for the curriculum in the first school here at North London Collegiate School. So my job is a really exciting one. I get to make sure the children are always learning something new. They're progressing through their learning and they're learning exciting things. So I do feel I'm very lucky to have the best job. This is my third year in Singapore, and before this, I have taught in Bangkok in international schools. So I've been over in Southeast Asia for quite a long time now.
Excellent. And how about you, Louise?
Hi, nice to be with you this afternoon. So my name's Louise McCabe-Arnold. I'm the junior school principal here at North London Collegiate School. And this is my first year at the school. Previous to this, I was head teacher of a large junior school in the UK. And previous to that, I also worked in a school in Abu Dhabi. So have worked in the international scene before, but very much happy to be here in Singapore and really loving working at North London Collegiate School.
Well, we're going to hear a lot from both of you. So thank you so much for joining us. So this is actually part of a 4-part series that we're working with at North London. And today's focus, again, for those that are joining us, is all about the junior school. So we're going to be diving in deep. But before we get started, it's always nice to kind of just get a bit more of a feel for the school. We'll be diving into the nuts and bolts of the junior school. But maybe if you could just take us through, painting us a picture about the school, maybe just in terms of what you expect when you walk in the door. Louise, maybe you could tell us.
I think the most important thing for us here at North London Collegiate is that we want children to love coming to school. We want their school days to be enjoyable, to be fun, to be challenging, and for them to really love learning. And I think that's something that we really pride ourselves on at NLCS, that when the children join us, and that can be right from when they're 3 years old and they first walk in the doors to our kindergarten class, is that we're really instilling in them that this love of learning, this kind of awe and curiosity and wonder, and wanting their school days to be as rich as possible. So for us, it's really about challenging them, seeing where the curriculum can take them, where their passions are, and allowing them to be part of that journey as well, because actually what we want them to do is to find the things they're interested in. And for us as a school, children often don't know what their passions are until you give them lots of opportunities to find the different things they might be interested in. So for us, it's about making sure that the students with us get a really, really well-rounded curriculum where they're exposed to really exciting topics and elements of learning, but also we're developing their character as well. So that character development and all those other skills that go alongside just the nuts and bolts of learning about subjects and learning the information that your teachers are imparting to you.
And when we're talking about junior school, can you break down maybe the ages? What's the earliest child that enters the school? And what age do you go up to?
Certainly. So here at North London Collegiate, we start at age 3 in our pre-kindergarten class. So our junior school is made up of pre-KG. In the first school, which Carly oversees, we have our pre-KG, KG1, KG2, and grade 1. And so that's equivalent to early years and Key Stage 1 in the British curriculum. And then the children move into lower school, which for us is grades 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that makes up the junior school together. So when the children leave us at the end of grade 5, they move into our senior school, and our senior school goes from grade 6 up to grade 12, where the children are then finishing their schooling before they head off to university or whatever else they've got planned ahead of them.
Excellent. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the pathways, but the main focus of this conversation, as you mentioned as well, is that the school really focuses on developing that love of learning, and that will carry them through no matter what direction, no matter what university, no matter what secondary approach they're taking. So that's going to be the real focus of our conversation. Our audience, families throughout Asia, in Singapore, considering the junior school. What's it like to be a student there? Like, what's a day in the life look like?
So I would say that enjoyment is a really big part of that. I think if you ask our children, they would say they love coming to school. They love being with their friends. They love their teachers. They love their lessons. They love the environment they're in. So a lot of that, we know that happy children learn best. So if your child is happy when they come to school, everything else will flow naturally behind that. So I think for our children, they would say that they get a lot of time to follow their passions and their interests. Our academics are very rigorous. We have very high expectations of our children, and we talk a lot at NLCS about floors, not ceilings. So we want to give the children opportunity to take their learning wherever they might want to go with it. And our teachers are there to enable that to happen. And our teachers are very highly skilled, very experienced, and have developed, and our curriculum has developed alongside our teachers to enable that to happen with our children. So I think our children would describe their day as intellectually challenging, lots of opportunity for working either independently or with their friends, lots of opportunities for developing those other skills. So things like their debating skills or their teamwork skills, lots of opportunities to showcase other skills alongside the learning that's actually going on perhaps within a particular subject.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive into the big focus of strong foundations. When we say strong foundations in the junior years, what do you mean by that in terms of beyond academics? And maybe, Carly, you could take us through that. What are the strong foundations?
So before children can start with their learning, they need to feel happy and settled. As Louise mentioned, we know that happy children learn best. So we need them to be coming into school feeling confident, ready to give things a go and be resilient if they face any challenges in their learning. And we need to develop their language so that they feel confident to share and able to speak to their friends and their teachers. We want them to be curious and ask questions and want to learn more and not want the lesson to end and want to ask more questions and find out more from their friends or from their teachers. We'd like them to problem solve and collaborate. And all of those things are taught through the early years, through the provision. So they may come to school and feel like, oh, they're playing, but all of the provision has been carefully planned to allow for them to collaborate and to problem solve and to investigate and to have that awe and wonder. So we building on all of these things such as teamwork and collaboration through the environment, through the lessons, ready for the real focused learning of maths and English and science in time to come.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, as a mom myself, my kids are a little bit older now, but those early years, if they love going to school, it's so crucial. Having the benefit of them really get those core skills of learning and loving the learning is super important. So kind of building on the foundations, what, in your opinion, how do you see childhood and primary years so influential in shaping how children see themselves later in life?
I think it's really important about the relationships they build with their early teachers, because they begin to form an identity and how they learn from the early years what they can do. And if the teachers are believing in them and showing them that they can do things, or if they make mistakes, that's okay, that's part of the learning, then that reflects how they will learn in later life. So they need to be having messages such as like, I can do this, or it's okay if I didn't do this time, what can I do next? And being really reflective on their learning and having really experienced and caring teachers, which they do have here, to guide them where to go next. And so that they know that everything is achievable. Just try your best and don't give up.
Excellent. From an early years perspective, which learning behaviors and dispositions do you feel are most important to develop before the age of 5? Those are the little guys. What are those?
So in the early years curriculum, we have the characteristics of effective learning. So alongside learning about English and maths and understanding of the world and their expressive arts and design, and we also think about the characteristics of effective learning. So we want the children to be able to play and explore, to be actively learning, and to be thinking critically and problem solving as well. So alongside the learning such as phonics and maths, we are developing those skills as well.
Okay, excellent. So we're always trying to get a visual of the campus and how it interacts and that kind of stuff. But when we talk specifically about play, language, emotional security, maybe we could even take it one by one. But in those early years, how do you envision those affecting the children's readiness for more formal years? Because it only gets more strenuous later. We would all like to play all day, but what's your take on that?
So I think the first thing is the emotional security needs to come first. They need to know that they have familiar faces. When they arrive at school in the morning, they're greeted by their familiar teachers that will take them on their learning journey that day, making friendships and developing those personal, social and emotional skills. They need to be happy. They need to feel confident. They need to feel safe. That comes first. I think language is really important, and learning language through their play. So at NLCS, we really get to know the children very well. We know about them, their families and their interests, and we use their interests and their things they've done at the weekend or things they've done in their holidays or things they enjoyed yesterday in their learning. We use that to plan in our learning for the next step for them. So I think language is important, and letting them have time to speak in their home language as well. So in the early years, nurturing the fact that a lot of our children do speak Mandarin at home, so how they can have that time to play and speak Mandarin too, and then encourage them to speak English through their learning as well. And then I'd also say just having time to play. Play is the gateway to learning in the future, getting them interested. And as I mentioned, the provision is so carefully planned. So they may think they're just playing with counters, but we've carefully planned to think about them and their early math skills, or they may be mixing colours, but we're thinking about developing the early scientific inquiry. Everything has been carefully planned with an academic focus. But if they go home and say, I played today, the parents will know they've done far more than that. It's just been very, very carefully planned for them, and the children learning without even knowing, which is really special.
I actually love that, because I think as a parent, sometimes you see what they do. They come home and you're like, oh, wow, you did that. You played with Play-Doh, or, whatever it is that they did that day. But then as the kids get older, you really do see the connections. And I know that you both understand that fully, but I think as parents, and it's really nice to see those connections. So I know we're talking about it, but as they progress, we will kind of dive into the primary progression next. But that is an important thing that I think as a parent, you're like, oh, it makes sense now why they were doing that.
Before they can hold a pencil and start writing novels and narrative, they need to be able to develop their fine motor skills, and that's developed through Play-Doh or through playing with small loose parts, and it's all carefully planned out for them.
Yes. And we know you appreciate it, but it is, I think the parents sometimes that we're just a little bit late to it. So it's nice to see it all making sense. So let's dive into the primary school progression, because now they're moving into the primary. Things like curiosity, confidence, and the joy of learning sometimes go up and down. So maybe, Louise, you could take us through the progression from, into primary school, and how we build on those early foundation skills that Carly was mentioning.
Yes, certainly. So as the students move through the primary school, our priority as teachers and as a school is always to remain with the priority on the learner rather than the curriculum, because I think it's really important. If we become too outcome driven, we actually risk losing that curiosity and that confidence that we've spent so much time carefully managing in the early years. So for us, it's really important that we value progress and effort, not just the results. The results are very important, but actually for the children, what's important is the journey they're on. So we want them to feel safe to ask questions. It's really important to us that we model making mistakes. And actually for children, if you're too scared to make a mistake, you risk never having an original thought or never having an original idea, because you're too worried by what might happen if you get something wrong. So for us, we want them to have that kind of curiosity and that ability to see mistakes as part of learning. And that ensures that their confidence stays with them, that their resilience grows. And resilience in learning is a really important skill, but it's not something that you just automatically have. You have to be taught it. So for us, that part and keeping creativity central to our curriculum is really important. That rigor and creativity are not opposites. You can have both in a carefully constructed curriculum. Deep thinking and being very academic does rely on imagination as well, and problem solving and exploration. So we need to move our students, and something we do really well at NLCS is we really move away from comparison. We're not comparing one child to another. It's all about personal growth. What are you doing to improve? What are you doing to get better? And actually, you should measure your success by how much you've improved, not what the end result is or the rank. Because actually, to stay motivated and engaged, you want to be seeing that you're getting better. So if we can protect all that, that's why the learning and the joy of learning doesn't disappear. It actually just matures with them as they move through the different stages of their schooling.
Excellent. And just as a kind of follow-up question on that, obviously there's families that have kids that follow the certain path, that you expect, and they just build and they just go. But of course, you've got children that do different things or have different skill sets or challenges. How does North London accommodate those and still encourage them so that they don't lose their confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes back to this resilience, because learning for none of us, our learning journey isn't a straight upward trajectory. There are bumps in the way and there are ups and downs. And actually part of learning is about that character that you are developing as a learner. And so for us, it's really important that there will be times where you make less progress than other times, or there will be times where you feel frustrated that you can't get something or something's not clicking. And actually, so for us, that's why we talk about the individual. So all of our curriculum is designed around making sure that that individual is able to flourish. And that might be because we've identified as a teacher that they are struggling in a little area at the moment, and we need to put some more things in place to support that. Or it might be they're going through a phase where they're absolutely flying and everything seemingly is coming quite easily to them. And so we're really challenging them and making sure that, boredom should not be something that children experience at school, because we're making sure that they're staying engaged. And actually, at the moment, they're going through a really positive part of their learning, whereas at other times, they may feel a bit stuck. And so we do a lot of work with them about, what goes on beneath the surface. What are the other things that we need to be doing? And I think children often, and parents, compare. And, it's very easy for a child to compare themselves to their friend and think, well, my friend finds learning so easy. But actually, a lot of the time, it's about all those other things you're doing. And it's like the iceberg analogy. It might look like one thing on the surface, but what's happening underneath? What are those other supports and scaffolding and things we need to put in place? And for us as a school, that's why we don't just treat all the children the same. We've got to personalise and individualise the path that each child is taking.
So at the end of primary school, what would you say are the important learning skills and attitudes that you see as success to kind of move to that next layer and, secondary or whatever path that might be?
So I think it isn't just about what students know. It's not about the knowledge that they've accumulated over the first kind of 6 or 7 years in primary school. It's about how they approach learning. So for us, we want them to be independent. That's really important. They have to be able to organize themselves. They have to be able to manage their time correctly. They have to be able to take responsibility for their learning. So we want them to be really resilient. And we've talked about, resilience is something that's really important to us. They have to see challenge as something that they lean into rather than run away from. And so for us, having self-belief is really fundamental to their journey, because students who believe that they can improve are going to make much more progress and take more risks and aim higher than those who don't have that. And alongside that, I think, is reflection. So the children have to understand their own strengths, but equally, they have to recognize their weaknesses. Where are their next steps? How are they going to improve? And how do they know how to get there as well? How do they learn best? When they're studying and they're getting older and they're starting to work towards the exams, all those skills I've talked about before are really important, but knowing yourself well is important. So, and part of that is, do you know when to ask for help? So we really encourage our children to be really proactive in asking for help, recognizing that they might need support. And, that's not being dependent on someone else. That's being an effective learner. So for us, all those skills, aside from the knowledge they've picked up in their primary years, is what makes them confident and gives them that successful transition to going into secondary school and meeting the demands of a more challenging curriculum and all the demands that come with moving into senior school.
Excellent. Well, I think it's a perfect segue to go into the well-being segment of this chat. Of course, with the little guys, just emotional regulation is challenging, but I'm curious to understand how well-being and emotional regulation affect children's ability to engage, persist, and take risks with learning.
So I think the really important part of this is that well-being shouldn't be separate from learning. It's the foundation for it. So and this is why we talk about when happy children are happy. So for us, it's everything from when the children come into school, do they feel calm? Do they feel safe? Do they feel emotionally supported? And are their brains ready to learn? Because if they're anxious or they're worried about something, actually their memory is going to be affected by that, and their attention span is going to be affected by that. So working on emotional regulation, understanding what's going on in a child's life. So for us, we say, we have an open door policy. We really want to get to know families and children and want to know what's going on in their lives outside of school. Because if something's happened outside of school, it could be there's a family member unwell, or it could be the family pet's not doing so well, or something happened at the weekend. If we know that, we can help them, we can support them, we can be aware of how that might affect their learning at school. We want them to be calm. We want them to have those opportunities to work with their friends, to collaborate, to be confident, to be creative, to take risks. And so what we have to teach is that emotional literacy as well. So for us, can they recognize how they're feeling? And that's quite challenging for young children, particularly knowing how I'm feeling at any one time, because I know how that affects me moving forward. So we want to give them all the tools to be able to manage those feelings or ask for help if they need to, because we know that has a direct impact on their engagement in lessons or how they're achieving in a certain subject. So if we really invest as a school in well-being, we're actually really investing in our learning capacity of the children and the outcomes that they're going to reach.
Excellent. And for the parents of the little ones, are there any examples of emotional regulation tools? Obviously, asking for a friend, even one that you might share that the school has adapted and sees it as a successful thing to share with parents.
So I think there's so many different examples of where we've given children the tools to be able to deal with a situation. I think for us, it's about building the relationship with their teacher so they really trust their teacher. And when they really trust their teacher, they're really open to receiving support as well as asking for support as well. So I think being able to identify what it is that they're struggling with, what it is that they need help with. Carly has got lots of examples of things they do in first school that help with that.
So in the junior school, we've really started talking about the zones of regulation. And so the children identifying what colour they are. So if they're feeling tired, it's one colour. If they're feeling frustrated, it's another. And kind of getting them to understand it's okay to feel how you feel and we can help you and support you. And everyone can feel different in different ways. So we really started to talk about the different colours and how they're feeling as they can start to reflect on that themselves. And another strategy that we've been using is journaling across the school. So giving the children time to draw or write about how they're feeling, and sometimes with a prompt. So it could be like, what weather are you feeling like today? So to get them to think about things in different ways, or if you woke up and had the best day ever, what would it look like? So giving them sometimes some questions to prompt thinking about how they feel and what they enjoy. But also there's just a space, if they're not feeling okay, they can write about it and draw about it in their own personal journal that is not marked by the teacher, not looked at by anyone else. It's their own personal space, but also they could write if they're really happy and celebrating something in there too. So there are a couple of things that we've done in the junior school recently to really get them to think about how they're feeling and how they can regulate that, or how they can have support if they need that.
Excellent. Good tips, and those kind of habits stay with you. So thank you. So let's talk a little bit more about the lifelong learning habits. And Carly, we've got you here. So maybe you can just share with us a little bit more on, when you think about lifelong learning, which qualities and habits should children leave primary school with?
So obviously we want children to leave the junior school with real academic skills and ready for their future, but we also want them to have a lot of the words we've already mentioned, such as resilience, so that they will face challenges as they go into senior school or into adult life, and how they approach them is really important, that they just know they don't have to give up and they can ask others for help, or they can use the strategies they've learned in junior school to meet the challenge and take it head on. The resilience to not give up and keep trying. I think staying curious is really important. So obviously in the early years, all of the provision is there for the awe and the wonder and the questioning, but never to give that up, because even when you're older, it's good to play and it's good to ask questions and it's good to explore. And just because you've left your time in the first school doesn't mean we leave all that behind. We take it with us, ready on our new adventure. The independence, as Louise mentioned, and we support the children to gain more independence as they get older. And just to stay really curious, open-minded, keep asking those questions and be a lifelong learner. And I think it's really important that the adults model that to the children. So for example, my Mandarin learning is very beginner stage, and the children know that, but I'm still trying and I'll still keep trying, and it's, as an adult, I still want to learn new things, and it's okay to make mistakes, but it's good to keep trying.
Excellent. Thank you. In terms of the most impactful things that schools can do across the early years in primary to strengthen those foundations daily, are there any things that you want to add on that topic?
I think in terms of its consistency. So for us, it's about maintaining that consistency right the way through their schooling. And very much of that becomes around how our school day is structured. They're having predictable routines that children know is what's going to be facing them when they come into school each day. Having really clear expectations from our children and what do we expect from them. That creates that security for them. It helps them develop that independence. We talk a lot at NLCS about our language-rich environments. Talk is really important. Storytelling, discussion, debating, teaching explicit vocabulary as well. That really underpins the curriculum. And we've talked a lot about play and really supporting that for that kind of exploration. And even as the children get older, we don't lose that. We do less of it, but we don't lose that. And so it's about also giving children the opportunity to engage in meaningful conversation with their teachers and with each other. It's not just an approach in the early years, it's actually how children develop at every stage. We want them to value mistakes, to have a culture within the school that we're all learners. And Carly mentioned that before about teachers learning as well. It's really important to us as staff that we model to the children that we're always learning new things as well for our development as teachers, but also just as humans, that's really important. So I think it's about keeping that consistent. And you'll see that as the children move into the senior school as well, keeping that consistency and those high expectations for our children to go on and achieve anything they set their mind to, and never putting limits on what they might be able to achieve.
Excellent. Well, as educators, I know that you are getting all this information 24/7. And as parents, I just wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit. Are there practical steps that you might recommend for parents to take home? I know we talked about emotional regulation, but just to stay on that learning, the confidence and well-being and the routines that you might recommend.
So I think, you speak to any teacher, particularly at primary age, and one of the things you'll always hear them talk about is the importance of reading. Reading with your children is just such an important fundamental skill. Becoming a lover of reading and becoming a lover of books, whether that's fiction or non-fiction, whatever that is, but having time together with your family, building on your language knowledge, whether that's in your home language, whether that's in English, that might be your second language, perhaps it's your third language. Having that emotional connection with your family when you read together, it's a really important foundation. And there's so many studies and so much research that's shown that the more vocabulary children are exposed to, the more time they spend reading, the better their outcomes are within education. Independence is hugely important, and I think that's sometimes something we always encourage our parents to work really hard on at home. Don't do those things for your child. Let them learn how to problem solve. I know sometimes it takes a bit longer when you're wanting to get out of the house and your child is determined to do it themselves, but it's really important that they learn to take responsibility for themselves. And actually, when they get something wrong, or we say to parents, if they've forgotten something at school, don't bring it in for them. They've got to learn from that. They've got to recognize that actually I've made a mistake, and I know that I need to be prepared for my learning tomorrow. So tomorrow I'm going to write myself a note and I'm going to remember it. I think also for parents, we talk a lot about not praising results and outcomes alone, but really praising effort and persistence and the work that's gone into it, because we don't always get the outcomes we want. And we know that as adults, things don't always go our way, and we can study really hard for a test and sometimes it doesn't come off. But we've made mistakes. What have we learned from it? How are we going to get better next time? And that comes back to what we talked about before about not comparing. So we say to the children, we're never comparing you to other children. We always encourage parents, don't worry about what other children are doing. Let's focus on what your child is doing and how they're able to develop and improve. Something we talk about a lot at school is about screen time. And I know that's a really important issue for parents. Very hot topic. We really cannot emphasize enough, particularly with younger children, the need to limit screen time. We have to have time where children play. We have to have time when children rest. They have very busy school days. They're spending a lot of time at school. They're going home. They're doing clubs. They're doing extra sessions, whatever it is they're doing in their sports or the music or craft, whatever it is. They need time to rest, and they need downtime. And children also need time to be bored, actually not providing anything for them, letting them use their imagination, a cardboard box and a pen, or nothing in a room, and seeing what you can come up with, because that's such an important part of developing that confidence and those learning skills. And family interaction time, having time with your family, sitting around a meal, when you're eating and discussing things, talking about something that's happened at school or something that's going on in the news, or just having that connection with your family is really important. So I think there's so many things that families can do alongside what happens in school. And for us at NLCS, it's a partnership. We want families to be really closely involved in what we do at school and vice versa, because we want to have that partnership together because we're all working towards the same thing.
You helped really simplify the parent side, because I do think sometimes it gets overwhelming. We get a lot of materials from school, or, various ideas and podcasts and all the things, but you're really keeping it to the basics. And you are right. I think a lot of times we drop off our kids at school and we're like, okay, you do the things, you teach them, you make them lifelong learners, put those foundations in. But, those key reminders of the basics, the stuff that is really important. It is a partnership, and that's great to hear that North London has that focus. So thank you. So we're going to actually wrap up. This has been a really interesting chat, and I know that if parents want to get more, you've got your open days that happen on Saturdays, and you also cater to those that are not in Singapore through various virtual opportunities as well. But we will include all of that in the information below. But as a wrap up, I just wanted to make sure if there's any final points that either of you might want to share about the junior school, about early foundations, about any of the topics that we talked today for our families at Little Steps.
I think for us, we're just a group of staff at a school that is super passionate about giving your child the very best start in their educational journey. And so for us, teachers become teachers because they're really passionate about getting the best out of children. And so for us, it's, welcoming families to come and meet us, to come and see what we do, to see the curriculum that we offer and the joy actually that our children have when they come to school. So, and I think both Carly and I have talked a lot about that the joy in learning is the thing we want all children to have. So I think that probably is our focus around everything is children loving coming to school because of all the experiences that they're getting.
Excellent. And Carly, do you have anything to add?
We would welcome you to come and visit us and speak to our children, because they will tell you all about their days and everything they've been up to. But I think as we've mentioned, just the partnership at home is so important, and we have lots of opportunities where the parents can come in and celebrate with their children. So we really are a partnership together, whether they parents are coming in for parent-teacher conferences regularly, or whether they're coming in to see their children's assemblies or shows or celebrations of learning. We're a partnership and we work together, and we all just want the best for their children.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like once you're in the community at North London, you're in and you're sharing and you're working in as a partnership. It's great to really do these kind of videos, because for those that don't know the school or are curious about the school, it's really nice to put the faces and see the passion and understand a little bit more about the curriculum and the focus that you guys have over there. So thank you so much. I have one final question, just a bit of a fun question to end and wrap it up. Just from your heart. You're both educators. You've had a lot of experience in the region as well at the school. What is your definition of a great school?
I would say that when you look back on your school years, you look back with real fondness for the teachers that shaped you becoming who you are, that you remember key moments where you had so much joy in your life as a child. Childhood should be joyful, but childhood shouldn't be rid of all challenges. And actually, what makes a childhood really joyful is accomplishment and overcoming barriers and feeling that sense of I've really achieved something, I've worked hard and I've set my mind to. And I think when you come into school and you meet our children, you see that lived out daily. And so for us, it's about having a place that is full of joy and children are making progress, but it doesn't mean that it's all smooth sailing, because a lot of that comes from being in an environment that supports you to get things wrong and make mistakes. And you know what? Pick yourself up and think you've had a terrible day, but you've picked yourself up. Your friends have supported you. Your teachers have been there to help you. And you go home and you've still had a good day. Even though things went wrong, you've still had a good day because you've made progress and you've learned and you've had fun while you do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Carly?
In our school, of what we want it to be like every day is probably the opposite of what you think a teacher would say. We don't want it to be really quiet. We want it to be noisy. We want it to be filled with conversation and laughter. And the things, just walking through the corridors, you hear the children talking about their learning. Or one thing last year I remember is a child walking past and saying, wow, look what they're doing in KG2. And they were in KG1. I can't wait to do that next year. And just really walking around, having those conversations. And you may think teachers want their children to be sat there quietly working, but actually we want the opposite. We want that conversation and that interaction and that dialogue and that love of learning to be shown through their absolute joy of being at school.
Excellent. Well, Love it. I kind of want to be a 5-year-old again. Thank you both so much. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, you've taught us a lot about home tips, the partnership, about how North London Collegiate School in Singapore approaches the early years and those core foundations. So we've learned a lot here. And thank you so much for sharing. And for those that are joining us, appreciate you learning right alongside us. And we will see you next time and part of this series with North London. We've got 3 more videos to do. So see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.